Okay, so we are live, and hi everyone who's joining us on Zoom and on YouTube. So I would like to introduce myself. I'm Shavini Fernando, and I'm also a pulmonary hypertension patient. But today with us, we are having Jessica and Kimber. Jessica is another pulmonary hypertension patient, and Kimber is the mom of a 6-year-old pulmonary hypertension patient. So all the stories, the three stories are different from one to another. Everyone's stories are different, and everyone has a different reason why we have got pulmonary hypertension, because the misunderstanding that most of the people have is that pulmonary hypertension is the primary disease. But yes, some people do get it idiopathically, but most of the time pulmonary hypertension is caused by a secondary disease. So most of us has pulmonary hypertension, not because it's a primary disease, but because we have another condition which led to pulmonary hypertension. So thank you, Jessica and Kimber, for joining us to create awareness on pulmonary hypertension, because it's a silent disease. Not many know about it. And when they see us, like, especially like when they see me and Jessica now, they would not think that we have a silent disease where any moment we can get a cardiac arrest or a stroke without a reason. So I will pass it to Kimber first, so that you can explain on Olivia's story, so that everyone first understands the story behind Olivia's pulmonary hypertension and what caused it.
So Olivia is 6. She started off at 1 pound 7 ounces, and at birth we knew she had a heart issue, which were 2 holes in her heart. After she got that repaired, she developed the pulmonary hypertension, and then she also has pulmonary vein stenosis, which is veins that go from the lungs to the heart, and those are really, really restricted, and which makes her pH go above 100 when she is at that level, when her veins are closed. So she can't get on a plane. It really just bumps her up with her levels. She's on oxygen 24/7. And I mean, she's 6, and so that's hard to even keep it on her. And then, yeah, she also has a pacemaker, and she's thriving though. She's thriving.
Thank you. And then I would love to, I know it must be a big challenge, because even for us, sometimes we are confused what's happening inside. We can feel like the heart rate is going crazy, or like the breathing we can feel, but we don't know exactly what's happening. But Olivia is 6, and she can't even explain what's going on, and you can't even see what's happening. So
yep, she has Down syndrome, so it's hard for her to even express how she's feeling. And the way she acts, she's always happy. And so, but even when she's really, really sick, she's happy. And so unless she passes out, that's the only way we know.
I can't even imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I would like to now ask Jessica to talk about her story, so that everyone would understand.
Sure.
How you got
it. So my entire life I've had another disease. The acronym for is HHT. It stands for hereditary hemorrhagic telangiectasia, which is essentially a vascular disorder where it causes malformed vessels and arteries in the major organs of the body. It can be brains, lungs, liver, GI tract, anything like that. Typically, you'll see, nosebleeds from people or or AVMs, which are the malformed vessels, either in their lungs or brain or wherever. And they don't have many more complications than that. But for 26% of HHT patients, they can develop pulmonary hypertension, and I was one of those lucky few.
And so, like, yeah, can you talk about like how you got diagnosed? Like, that's something like everyone I think should know, because most of the time, by the time we get diagnosed, it's already gone to high numbers. Until then, we don't know, we don't feel it.
Yeah, definitely. So I had actually come back from a work trip to New Orleans, ate all the salty food, walked up and down Bourbon Street, drank socially, everything that is bad for pulmonary hypertension patients. But of course, I didn't know I had it. When I came home, I realized I couldn't lay down flat. I couldn't breathe. I was having massive palpitations, felt like my heart was skipping. I could feel it in my throat and my stomach. And it took a couple different ER trips for them to tell me that I did in fact have pulmonary hypertension. And because I was already diagnosed with HHT, Johns Hopkins University down here in Baltimore, Maryland, was able to get me in and get me diagnosed with pulmonary hypertension. My numbers were, I think it was in like the 70s or 80s. They took off 20 pounds of fluid from me because I was in advanced heart failure. Couple weeks to live if it had gone undiagnosed, all that good stuff. So I spent 8 days in the hospital, them taking fluid off of me, doing every test known to man. You know, they checked my heart, they checked my lungs, liver, everything, just to make sure that it was in fact pulmonary hypertension and why my HHT had caused it, because it can cause it in a few different ways. You can have shunting from your liver from an AVM in there, or you can just have malformed vessels, which is the one I have, which is pulmonary arterial hypertension.
Okay, so something that we all had was like we all had normal lives before. And I know Olivia's is from because of her birth condition, but for me and Jessica, I would say I was an athlete before and I was a swimmer, right? And then suddenly this comes as a bomb, right? Because we are so used to that lifestyle, we didn't think. I don't even, you said you were running marathons and you were hiking, you were just going drinking bourbon, all that with no issue. But now this came as a bomb and everything just changed completely overnight. So how did you like feel like when your whole life changed like that?
I definitely went through a phase where I was like, oh my God, I'm going to die. I'm not going to be able to live the rest of my life normally. I was depressed, and, you know, I definitely went to therapy, which helped. I got on the right medications. I made lifestyle changes. No more drinking, no more eating salty food. I have to watch how much I drink of water because my body doesn't know what to do with it, so it just holds on to it. But yeah, no, it was definitely a shock to the system, because it was a complete 180 from how I was living.
Yeah. And then Kimber, like how, like for you with Olivia, she's just 6 years old, right? Like I said,
Yeah.
she can't explain. So what are the normal like day-to-day challenges you face, like especially being a caregiver? And it's even still it must be a learning process for you about the whole thing, because every day you must be learning something new.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult. Like, again, we don't know what her levels are, what her oxygen stats are, unless she passes out. Like, that's literally the only way we can know. And so we're constantly following her with her oxygen, making sure it's not unplugged somewhere, making sure her brothers and sisters aren't messing with it, which they do. So But yeah, it's a daily struggle for us, that's for sure, just to make sure that we keep her alive and as healthy as possible.
And then like when she got diagnosed, like I know we will, so I remember for me they said you have just 2 years to live when I got diagnosed, and Jessica said it's a couple of months for her to live, right?
Yep.
And but it's, we all have passed those years beyond what they initially told us, right? So when you compare Olivia's, like how the doctors first told, and to now to date the journey you came, like how do you see her progress, and how she's like going to school and doing all the things
She's
that
going to
other
school,
people
yep.
are doing, right?
So she wasn't supposed to live past 1, and she is 6. Like, it's just amazing. She writes her own book. She does what, everything she follows. It's just not medically correct. Like, not all doctors are right. And so we found specialists to make sure we gave her the fullest life possible. She goes to school. She also has hearing aids. So she is learning sign language. That's how she communicates with us. She's just flourishing. Like, she's doing great. Even though she's on oxygen, she's still Olivia. So
Yeah. So, and I know for a fact, like when I got diagnosed, they told me no more swimming, no more running, no more flights, right? But everything they said no to date, I have done most of it. So before the whole COVID started, I took my first flight, even though they said no. And I go climbing, I go rock climbing, right? So we all have lived, like done most of the things they said we can't do anymore. How do you feel about that, Jessica? Like breaking all the stereotypes and everything they said no.
I mean, I definitely made it a point to myself to break the statistics, because if you tell most people that they can't do something, they're bound to determine to do it, or will find a way to live through it.
Yeah, I think when that's how I feel as well. When doctors tell us no to something, I feel literally like they are daring us.
Yeah.
I have to do this and prove that I can do this.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe that's the reason why most of the pulmonary hypertension patients are maybe that's why they can't see that we are sick, because although we have a condition, we don't take it to our heads, and we try and do the best we can, and try and live for the day, and like have everything possible and do everything possible. So now, like, okay, we everything changed for us, like when we from the time we got diagnosed, like literally all our lives changed. We had to adjust to so many things, and now on top of all that we have a pandemic, which is more of high risk for us, right? So at a time like this, and especially Olivia is 6, how do you manage everything, Kimber? Like what are the things that you are doing in order to be safe? And it's a
So
new
my
challenge.
kids have not stepped inside of a store for about 4 or 5 months. So they don't go anywhere. We just keep the house clean, of course, and just sanitize constantly, just to make sure that that Olivia does not get COVID. I know if she would get it, she would die. And so it's a constant fear of going out, seeing her grandparents, seeing our family, that everyone wants to see her in case she does get it and she does die. I know that sounds morbid, but if she, they want to see her too in case something happens, but we can't do that just because we have to keep her safe. And so that's also another struggle that we are dealing with.
And for you, Jessica, now how has life changed with all this COVID and everything, and especially like having to go to hospitals? We can't go to hospitals.
Yeah. I I've definitely had my fair share of close calls with having to go to a hospital. I actually started the quarantine in the ER when everyone was, getting really sick and it was just spreading rampantly. But for pretty much 4 months, I stayed in. I still stay in most of the time, but I have now, within the past like 2 weeks, started to venture out back into the real world, go grocery shopping for myself. I've seen a couple friends that are, not COVID positive and haven't shown symptoms. Worn masks. I have a collection of masks now, just in case I need to like go out repeatedly. Sanitizer everywhere, disinfectant. It's like living in a bubble, essentially.
I dropped off for a few seconds. Something happened, the technical issues. Yeah, so now we spoke about like how COVID and everything is, right? And then the challenges we meet. And then something we see is like, especially all three of us are living in US, and we can see so many, like the numbers are rising and most of the people doesn't understand why they are saying to wear a mask, right? Most of the people say it's up to me to take the risk, it's my life. But as three individuals who's handling a cardiopulmonary disease, right? We understand like this is not a risk they would want to take, because I'm sure most of them doesn't know how it feels to have a pulmonary disease, right? Because until even we didn't know until the moment that we learned like breathing is like breathing through a straw, and how it feels when you are getting choked. Most of the people doesn't know those feelings, so that's why I feel most of them are not taking this so seriously. So like you see, like I, to be honest, I have not stepped out of my apartment for 14 weeks now. I just go collect my packages and come in. That's mainly because I see a lot of people who's not wearing mask, and knowing my condition, I don't want to even get the slightest cold, which will end me up in a ER. So as someone with a pulmonary disease, what would you like to the tell people about how it feels when your lungs are compromised, the risk that they don't know that they are going to take, and the risk that they're putting the others in?
Yeah, it's definitely, like you said, breathing through a straw is what it feels like when we're having bad days. And some people, that's what it feels like 24/7. I know if you've ever ran a mile and were super winded afterwards, that's what you're going to feel like almost all of the time. We're constantly out of breath. I can be sitting here talking out of breath. So, COVID is showing that if you get it, it does damage your lungs, and that's what it can end up doing to you. And a mask is just the simplest thing that you could do to prevent that.
And especially because it's not about them putting a mask, and they think that they are putting a mask, why they are asked to put a mask is to save themselves.
Mm-hmm.
But they don't understand why they are supposed to put a mask is to not give a risk to the rest of the people, like especially people who are high risk, who has like other diseases who's already compromised.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, we spoke, and then most of it. So I will open it up for questions. If anyone has any questions, you can ask the three of us, and we are ready to answer any questions you have. So until they collect the questions and send. Until they collect the questions and send. How? Wait, let me just close this one here. So now, for you, Jessica, like, okay, one thing I forgot to ask was, I wear oxygen all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Olivia wears oxygen all the time, right?
Yep.
So for me, a problem that I have seen is when I try to explain about pulmonary hypertension, the first question people ask is, how come I don't see so many like you who's wearing oxygen? Right? It's very hard to create awareness on this because people think everyone who has pulmonary hypertension, it's a must, they should wear oxygen. But for you, it's the other way around. You don't wear oxygen like us. Like I wear it, even though now I'm not wearing it. Every time I step out, I wear my oxygen.
Mm-hmm.
But so for me, the challenge is like walking around it and all the weird looks that people get, and then trying to explain that, okay, it's not just me. The numbers are like really big. It's just it's silent unless I always say it's like a pregnancy. Until you know that person is pregnant, you don't notice it, right? So same with pulmonary hypertension. Until you know that person has hypertension, you don't notice it, right? So I'm sure your challenges must be completely different to the challenges that I have, because you have the disease, but you don't wear oxygen. So people don't see you as a pulmonary hypertension patient. What are the challenges that you have?
Yeah, no, I've definitely been in the hospital and been walked past because they are looking for some 80-year-old woman in a wheelchair or with oxygen on. But that's not the case for everyone. I know plenty of people who have the disease and don't need oxygen at all. I did wear oxygen for about a month and a half, just because my numbers were getting, higher, and I was having trouble with activity, being able to breathe correctly, or my oxygen levels were dropping. But yeah, no, it's something. It's very much an invisible disease. I have a handicap tag, and I use it, and I get weird looks all the time. But they don't understand that, if I park further away and have to make that trek into the store, I may not be able to make it around the entire store. If I park closer, I can. So, I mean, on good days, I can speed walk faster than, my boyfriend or
The
whoever.
flat flow. The flat flow.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I speed walk on the flat flow, but then the slightest incline, I'm like,
yeah.
okay, you go, I'll come.
Yep, exactly. I've definitely been hanging back, catching my breath. It's like, if there's even the slightest incline, I'm definitely one of those people where I'm like, I'll be right there.
Yeah. I can completely relate to it. I'm like, you go on, I will catch up. Don't
Yeah.
wait for me. But the flat flow, I'm faster than everyone else. I can like beat them. Just as the slightest incline climb. And it's funny, people are like, this is not a hill. I'm like, no, it's the hill.
Yeah, they just don't feel it.
I always say I'm like accelerometer. I can literally feel like where the high inclines and the low, because I know like when based on my breathing. That's a challenge we all have, I guess. So we have a question, and then Erica is asking, do you know of anyone that has contracted COVID with PAH?
I personally have not. No.
No.
Yeah, even I don't know anyone personally, but I heard I heard like it's very less numbers with PH because I think we are being so careful. So the chances of
Right.
the PH community getting it is very low because we are extra careful than the rest of the people. But also something I heard is I heard from someone who knows a person who got COVID with PH that she actually has fared it better than the other patients. And the reason why is I think because we are on vasodilators
Yeah.
and our hearts are already used to the high pressure. And because the damage on the lungs is higher than what COVID brings, so the immune system doesn't attack as bad as for someone who doesn't have PH. That's what I heard. But maybe, I don't know many people who got it. So I guess it depends from person to person.
Yeah.
And yeah, we are open for questions. And so until people send questions on YouTube and this, another question I would like to have is like, has there any, for me, every time I get an episode, I know no one has been near me. Only once I had paper. So all the time I had to do everything on my own because I live alone. So has there been any episodes like for both of you where like it has come to episode where you have to run to the ER and a tricky episode like that where you had to manage, or how does a normal episode look for you?
So for like Olivia, we live in the mountains. We're in Colorado, so we're really high. We're above a
Yeah, I think
mile. And so we live on the other side of the mountain and not in Denver. And so every time she has any episode, she gets into atrial flutter, which is due to pH. If her oxygen drops and her heart rate goes way, skyrocketed. And she flies over every time. So she's been on Flight for Life 7 times. So we have a plan put in place, but it's still a matter of fact of getting there and getting on that helicopter safely.
wow.
I'm sure that's scary.
It is.
So you have to wait until the helicopter comes, right? You can't do anything.
Yeah, exactly. So we have to drive an hour to the hospital to get on the helicopter. So even like in an ambulance, that's 30 minutes because the local hospital will not even take her at all because she's so complex. So it has to be done quickly, and yeah, it just, risks her life every time.
Yeah, I can relate to this because even for me, an issue that I have is I get treated at John Hopkins, Baltimore. But every time, because I live in Georgetown, every time I get an episode, I run to the Georgetown ER. But most of the time, when I go there, people don't know how to treat me at the ER. And I am very cautious because for me, because I have a Eisenmenger's, I don't have a wall between my two atriums. So I have got strokes because of air embolisms. Because if air bubble goes in, it straight away goes to my brain. So I have got strokes like that. So it's very tricky because at the ER, I keep asking them to put an air bubble filter, and I don't let them put a IV, but they don't understand it. And they keep saying, this is what we do for all the patients. I'm like, I'm not a normal patient. I'm different. You can kill me by sending air bubbles. So no, you can't touch me. And so it's very tricky. So most of the time when they don't listen, I tell them, call the doctor, call John Hopkins. Until then, don't do anything. Because I remember once they were not sure whether the stroke The stroke I got was a hypoxic stroke, but they thought it was a clot. So they put me on blood thinners. And then because the blood, after they put me on thinners, it was bleeding continuously. They flushed the IV twice, which is salt. So he ended up getting a arrhythmia, like a SVT, a supraventricular tachycardia, and then I kept screaming and everyone got panicked because I knew it was rising. That means I felt like my whole side was going numb. And they don't understand. So it's very tricky because we can't go to all the hospitals and not everyone understands it. Like for you, Jessica, has there been any episodes like that?
Not for PH, not at least, something that I had to go right away for. But it's definitely happened for my HHT, where I'll get nosebleeds that I can't control. Whether it's for my PH or my HHT, my doctors have pretty much said, don't even bother going to other hospitals. Just go to Johns Hopkins. Just because I've had, multiple occasions where no one knows how to treat me, because, I look like a normal person, but I'm like, no, I have 2 rare diseases. You guys kind of have to be careful. Or I'm the one telling them what to do.
Right.
Like, you need to use this kind of packing, or I can't have this, or, this will harm me. Don't give me blood thinners, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's very tricky sometimes. I think even because of that, I think the staff must be getting angry with us as well, because it's literally they must be feeling we are challenging their knowledge, but it's not that we are challenging their knowledge. It's we know what's best for us and we are just trying to be safe. But
yeah, I don't know how many times I've had doctors say, well, thank you so much for teaching me, about this. And like, I feel like I am a cardiologist, a homemade cardiologist, because I know so much about my daughter.
Yeah, I know so much about cardiovascular diseases
Right?
now more than anyone else, because I keep studying myself all the time to learn what I can do, what my limitations are. And yeah, when I go to, because Ison is so rare, they hardly see anyone who doesn't have a wall between their atriums.
Right.
So most of the time when I'm at ER, I literally feel like a guinea pig. So many students come and ask, is it okay if we do an echo on you? And they love to see like where the wall is, like how, and then they come, can I hear your heart rate? Because I have 3 beats because there's no wall. Like normally it's 2 beats, so I have 3 beats. So they always like, can I listen to your heartbeat? So is it okay? I'm like, yeah, I'm used to this. Go ahead.
You really become like a science project for them.
Yeah, I'm literally like a science project. I feel like I'm a lab mouse most of the time.
Because Johns Hopkins is a teaching hospital, they're always like, can we bring these people in to see you? And I'm just like, sure. Just
Especially during the morning rounds.
Yes. You get woken up by a group of 20 med students. Yeah. Just
I wake up and I'm like, it's okay.
Kimber, do Olivia's siblings understand like what she has?
So they're younger. So I have Olivia's 6 and I have a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old. Mm-hmm. So I mean, my 2-year-old is constantly unplugging her oxygen. It's a pain in the butt. But then Olivia will like wrap the oxygen around her neck. So she'll stick up for herself. But I mean, my son is awesome. He actually always volunteers to carry her oxygen because he weighs more. He's like 32 pounds and Olivia's only 28 pounds. So he carries the oxygen. He'll get her unstuck off of things. He'll help give her medicine. So we make sure to involve them as much as we can with her care so they can feel like they matter too, if that makes sense. It's like a fine line with special needs and with your children to make sure that your other children are just as important. Even though Olivia needs more medical attention, we do just involve them in everything that we can with her.
Yeah, because otherwise they would feel like that's how kids feel, like you love her more and not me.
Exactly.
So you need to balance it
It's
up.
so hard. We're like, no, we love you guys too. We just have to go to children's real quick. I'm sorry. But yeah, we're always just making sure Lincoln is like, hey, can you go grab her medicine bag for me? Can you go turn on her oxygen for me? Like, we're making sure that he feels that he's helping also.
Yeah, and then there's another question I think we all can answer that. It says, is there any online resources for pulmonary hypertension patients? I think this must be from one of the global viewers, because although we have things here, most of them who's out of US doesn't have much resources. So yeah, like anyone who wants to learn more about pulmonary hypertension, you can go to the Pulmonary Hypertension Association website, which is I think pha.org, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Or
it's
PH Association.
pha.org.
Yeah.
And you can go to that. It has everything you need to learn about pulmonary hypertension, all the materials, and it has the contacts for hospitals, pulmonary hypertension facilities, and about medicine, insurance, and even videos, educational videos. And if you sign up for their magazine and for the newsletters, you will get updates on the newest, like the latest drug releases, the latest all the trials and everything. So you can be a part of them. And they're very helpful. You can contact them anytime on their social media and sign up for their social media, because through the social media, you can get to know a lot of stuff, because they keep always having webinars and live panels and discussions with physicians, doctors. So which part of the world you are, you can still attend all those to learn more.
Yep. There's also PH News, which is a website that has columns written by patients, as well as forums. And then there's also Facebook groups that PH Association runs, which are super helpful because they have ones that are tailored for people under a certain age, over a certain age, if they're going through pregnancy, if they have another associated disease, and things like that. There's definitely a ton of resources. I know when I signed up for PH Association, they sent me like a welcome packet with like a little booklet with recipes and cards and resources that were super helpful when I was first getting started and first diagnosed and going, what do I do?
Yeah. And also I have another question. Okay, so before that, we have a question from Erica. Has anyone found diets and exercises that work well, especially for low sodium and low impact?
Mm-hmm.
I eat everything, so Jessica, maybe you can answer.
I mean, I eat everything too, but I typically make most of my stuff, especially now during COVID. It's just easier to control your sodium. I'm restricted to 2,000 milligrams per day. I'm also restricted to 2 liters of water per day. So there's trackers like FitnessPal and stuff like that you can track your sodium on as well. But the low salt diet is definitely helpful. I think the DASH diet is also low salt. It's also kind of like a heart healthy diet. Those are typically what they recommend. As far as the exercise, I just walk my dog around my apartment building when I can. I take stairs every day. Just staying active. I know some people who weight train and power lift and things like that who have the disease. I am not doing any of those though.
Yeah, and for me, I think I would say what I do is, because I was an athlete before, and something I always think is before I got diagnosed, I did most of the things. Like it's a matter of you knowing you have it now and then you not knowing back then. So I try my best to keep my lungs from getting lazy, because once the lungs get lazy, and once it is not used to that lifestyle, it's hard for it to again come back to that normal track. That's what I believe. So I try my best to keep the same level going. Like before COVID, what I used to do was I walk a lot. So I make sure I can walk, I don't get tired, and I keep maintaining that. But now because of COVID, because I can't go out most of the time indoors, I keep doing a lot of activities. Like I'm a gamer, so I play virtual reality games, so that can keep my cardio function going. So a lot of activities, like maybe you can find something like a video of Zumba or something that you can do at home. It doesn't have to be walking, it's just you need to, I think, get that your cardio function going, because it's the problem with us is our right heart. So you need to make sure your heart can support your lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
And because if you keep that going nicely, then your lungs also will be active, because I don't want them to get lazy. So maybe you can figure out what your limits are, and based on that, find like something on TV, like a Zumba video or a yoga activity or something which you can do at home, since now COVID has limited our outside activities.
And for like Olivia, we make sure that she tries to keep her stamina up, which is not very. She can. So we go like on a lot of hikes, and we try and make her walk. I know that sounds bad, but we try and make her walk just a little bit, just to, get her stamina back up, just so she can run around with her classmates, so she can feel like a normal child. And so we don't always carry her. She wants to be always carried, but we just, try to make her walk a little bit too, to keep her healthy.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like you need to make sure you can still do your normal activities, because otherwise, if you don't do it, then your heart and the lungs get used to that lazy routine, and then it's hard to get back onto that. Because now these days, I feel, since I have not walked so much, I get tired when I walk down my apartment complex, because I don't take the elevator, I take the stairs these days, because that's exercise too.
Right.
But I feel it now. I didn't feel it before. Like I feel it more now. So I started working out more because of that, because now I feel like they're getting lazy. I need to keep up to my normal routine. And another thing that this is a question that I'm very curious about. For me, my doctors have told Kimber, I'm not allowed to go to Colorado. I'm literally begging, asking for permission because I had to, since I have my own work, I had to go for a convention in Colorado, and they said, no, you're not going.
Yeah,
And even my flights, yeah, even the flights now, they're like, you're not taking any flight which goes above that level, like the altitude level, but that altitude level is lower than Colorado. So you live with Olivia in Colorado, and I'm curious like how it has worked, because the altitude like affects the pH as well. That's something I know.
Yep. So, I mean, I've lived here all my life, and Olivia was born here, so it's a lot easier for people that have already, acclimated to the elevation. Olivia does do better, of course, at sea level. So when we're on the ocean, at the ocean, on the beach, we can get our oxygen off, and she does so much better. But yeah, it's kind of for people that have never been here, it's really hard. Like, there's athletes that come and they need oxygen constantly, and I just laugh and I'm like, well.
Yeah, I can understand, because I work with the high altitude training athletes, because
Yep.
it's a problem that they have as well, just like for us, the hypoxia. So it's funny because people don't understand when they can't breathe, and then when they're passing out at high altitude, it's not something to do with their body. It's just because it's low oxygen in the air and their body is going on hypoxia. It's most of the people doesn't understand this term, but with COVID now it has become very prominent because all the COVID patients are going through hypoxia now. Like, how has it been for you, like when it comes to explaining your condition with the others, your friends, and like who doesn't know this? Because I know it's very tricky for me to explain to people.
Yeah, it's I pretty much explain it like I just have busted lungs. They just don't work.
Yeah, I said the same thing. I said I have a pair of busted lungs and a heart.
Yeah, I'm like, my nose doesn't work, my lungs don't work. It's just how life is. I'm actually very fortunate because I was only diagnosed 4 years ago. A lot of my friends went through the diagnosis with me, and they're very, very considerate, when we're doing things, or, they are constantly yelling at me not to do certain things. I get the Jessica kind of stuff. So they keep me in check, definitely. If I don't feel like going to the doctor or hospital, they go, you need to.
Yeah, it's nice to have people around you who understands, because even for me, I know, like, if when I have to go upstairs, and when I have my bag and everyone's like, you want me to carry your oxygen for you and the bag for you? And then even when I'm walking on the road and if I'm panting, they're like, give me the oxygen, I'll carry it. I'm like, no, that doesn't work like that. We both will get tangled up on the road. It's a different challenge, like, especially, and for me, because my oxygen battery lasts only for 4 hours. That's another limitation in life, because carrying that battery is so heavy, the spare battery. And having the battery in my bag is another weight. And especially like if you're going for a special function or something, you have the oxygen and then you need to have another bag where you can carry your spare batteries. And I know it's the same, like see, all of us are girls. It's funny because 75% of the PH population are women, right? And we all love to dress up and go for all these events. But dressing up is not easy for us. And then when you're for you, like, what are the things that things? So for the others, all the other ladies, they have their phone, the keys. Those are the things that has to be in their bag. What are your stuff in the bag?
So I keep a pulse oximeter on me, just in case. I've definitely, when I did have oxygen, I would keep a spare tank with me when I went somewhere. And then because I do have HHT and I get nosebleeds all the time, I have tons of tissues around. Like, there's boxes in my car, there's a box right next to me right now. My purse is just stuffed full with them. And then I have different things to help with that. So it's a little different because, some people only have to deal with the oxygen or the pulse oximeter or whatnot, and then I have to deal with a whole nother thing along with it. But I have a friend who has a pump and a feeding tube, and she has trouble finding dresses to cover that for easy access. It has to have pockets so she can put her pack in it, that kind of thing. So you need easy access to everything when you have diseases like these.
Yeah, and then we have Olivia on the video now. So for you, Kimber, when you're going with Olivia, what is in your bag?
Hi.
Hi, Olivia.
Look at this. Oh, you're so sweet. Okay, thank you.
There's so many here, like, here to see you.
Yeah, she's doing great too. Huh? You doing great? Yeah. Hi.
You want to say anything to everyone?
What do you want to say? Say thank you. Good job. Good signing and good talking. You want to sing? Not right now, okay? Okay.
She's adorable.
Thank you.
So what do you have, Kimber? Because now it's not like you have to take 3 kids when you're going out, and then with Olivia, like your bag.
Oh man. So she's still not potty trained either, you know, because of her Down syndrome and stuff. But so we are constantly, my back hurts. So I know I'm constantly holding everything for her. Going outside is just difficult because she cannot hold that oxygen bag. It is way too heavy for her. So yeah, I'm over it. You gotta get bigger, huh? So you can hold it.
Yeah, I can imagine, because when I had to go to San Francisco, I had the weight limit in my luggage, but after I put my spare oxygen, and my medicine and my chargers, the spare batteries, my weight was gone. I was like, I don't have any more weight left for my clothes,
Right.
because everything gone. And it's so tricky because we have so many things to carry, and it's people don't realize this part. And even especially when you're going like going to a place and everything, like they only see us carrying the oxygen, but they don't understand how heavy it is.
Oh yeah.
It's I know my left shoulder is like completely wasted now, the shoulder muscle, because after carrying the oxygen I always get a shoulder pain because it's so heavy. And I can't imagine like Olivia, like for that age, carrying that heavy cylinder, because the cylinder must be heavier than her.
Yep, and hers are the tanks because her company will not pay for like a portable oxygen concentrator because she's too young. So there's that.
Oh wow.
So it's the refillable tanks, and they are so heavy.
Oh, they were heavy for me.
Right?
Can't
Poor
imagine
girl.
a kid trying to carry those.
Yeah, that's why I went for the portable, the carry-on bag, because earlier I had the pull-on one, the continuous, which was close to about 10 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't go alone. I had to always make sure someone else is there with me, because even if there's like 3 steps, I can't lift it and keep it up on those 3 stairs. It's just few steps that I can climb, but I can't go on those because of the oxygen, because it's so heavy. I need someone else to help me carry that. And there's so many things you need to keep in mind. And we have a question here, like it says, if a PH patient starts to increase exercise every day, what do you recommend that her should pay attention to?
I mean, definitely your oxygen level. I mean, even if you don't have a pulse oximeter, which is, you know, a device that you can put on your finger to test your oxygen, your pulse, there are other signs. Your lips can start going blue. You can start looking ashy and pale. You can get dizzy and lightheaded. I know that when I was in the gym working out and I would stretch, if I compressed my leg to stretch it up, it would cut off blood flow and make me dizzy. So it's those things that you have to go slow, and you have to really pay attention to what your body is telling you.
Yeah, and I think another thing how I feel it is because I'm someone doesn't feel, because I used to be an athlete, I don't feel my oxygen levels falling until it goes, even if it goes to 50%, I don't feel it. I don't even go blue. It's very tricky for me. Yeah, I don't go blue at all. I don't feel I'm about to pass out. The only way I feel it is I feel my chest tightening up just slightly, because I know it's working hard to get the lungs to work. So you need to understand, like, because from each of us, our symptoms are different based on the capacity of each of our body is. So without starting to increase exercise like suddenly, if you slowly increase and daily, when you're doing it, when you suddenly feel like you are getting tired, I think it's better to check. If you have a finger cuff, put and check what's your heart rate is and what's your oxygen levels are. Even if your oxygen levels are, I think, around 95, if your heart rate is going above 120, I think it's better to take a rest.
Yeah.
Yep. So for like Olivia, yeah, she doesn't turn blue. So we were on an airplane going to Boston Children's for her second open heart surgery. And the doctors there, when we got there, were like, she should have died on that plane because her pressures were over 100. But she was on there laughing, smiling, jumping. And we had no idea that her pressures were that bad until we landed at Boston Children's.
Yeah, they told me
there's no blue. There's nothing. And with her, she can't tell us if she's dizzy. She can't tell us if she doesn't feel good. And so it's like the only thing that works is a pulse ox. That's it.
Yep.
Yeah, because even for me, I think it was the same, because I flew here to US for a second opinion. And then when I went for my first appointment at John Hopkins, they asked me, how did you fly? You could have died in that plane. I was like, I used to fly every 3 months and I was fine. And they were like, do you know what your pH level is? Your pH level is 128. I'm like, what does that mean? Because I had no clue what pH was, the numbers, what it should be. They were like, these are numbers that can give you a heart failure. Like, you could have died in that plane.
Yep.
So they were like, you are not getting on a plane again. So I'm apparently willingly or unwillingly stuck in the United States, but it's not bad. I started flying to San Francisco last month. So now I'm trying to get permission at least to go home and come. In like 4 or 5 flights, maybe like short distance flights, trying to find the best route.
Yeah, it's amazing what your body can do while you're not doing well. I was in heart failure for months and didn't know it. And I flew and I drank and I, ate everything I wasn't supposed to. I walked too much. I moved apartments in the middle of it. But it's one of those things where the doctor was like, how are you alive right now? So.
Yeah, they keep asking me, because still my pulmonary hypertension is 80. It keeps going up and down between 80 and 90. But I don't wear oxygen. And my oxygen levels are around, every time I go to the doctors and they check, it's around 98. So my cardiologist literally teases me. I have no idea how you function. And I think like your body, if you have the will, your body will function the way you want.
Yeah.
I highly believe on that. So it's all about you having the will and not letting the disease define you, but you try to live it the way you want. It's all up to you and how you take it. Because I think that's why, like, I think that's why it's easier for kids when they have PH, because like us, they don't think too much.
Right. They just want to live a normal life and
yeah,
nothing slows them down.
So I think something I would say is, when you have a rare disease or when you have one of these chronic diseases, you just need to think like a kid.
Yeah. Exactly.
Not to think too much.
Yeah. So I have a question for you guys. So healthy people, they complain about wearing a mask, saying they can't breathe. How can you guys breathe with the mask on?
I have no issue.
No issue? Awesome. Do you wear oxygen with it just so you?
No.
Okay.
Like, so for me, I wear it if I'm going out of my building. when I just go for a walk, I check like, so I live next to Arlington Cemetery. So what I do is I check when no one's out and I walk to the cemetery because I go away from the living and stay with the non-living for a while and come in because it's the safest for me at the moment. So when I go out like that, because I know it's away from the apartment, like a long distance, so then I wear the oxygen under the mask so that I have it when I'm going uphill to crank it up to the levels I want. But inside the apartment, I don't wear the mask at all. And my oxygen levels are 98, 90, above 95 all the time. So even for me, it's a big question why people who doesn't have any like vascular diseases saying they can't breathe in the inside the mask. It's
an excuse. It really is.
just an excuse, I think.
Mm-hmm.
For you, how does it feel? Like you wear the mask. I have seen you like posting pictures with your mask all the time.
Yeah, it's definitely it depends on the day. Because I get the nosebleeds and everything, and because the vasodilators, one of the side effects is stuffy nose. I always sound like I have a cold. So like I can't breathe through my nose right now, so I'm constantly breathing through my mouth. And when I put masks on, it depends on what type of mask it is, and like the material and whatnot. But if I'm breathing through my mouth, it's a little harder with certain fabrics. If it's a more breathable fabric, obviously I don't have a problem. But when people say, I don't want to wear a mask or I don't need to because I'm healthy, or I just go, I have heart failure, I have 2 rare diseases, and I could die from this, and I'm still willing to wear a mask for myself and for other people.
Right.
So I don't quite understand why people are so unwilling to wear masks right now.
Yeah, I wear the surgical mask all the time, not the cloth mask, but I don't have any issue in breathing without the oxygen, and especially as someone who needs to be on oxygen. So I think it's all about excuses people try to make. But yeah, it's already 1 o'clock and I think we have reached time. So before we finish this, first I want to thank you both for joining this because it's very important. I think so. Since I got diagnosed, one of the biggest missions has been now is creating awareness on this because it's crazy when you see the number of people who has this, but no one knows about this.
Mm-hmm.
No one knows what pulmonary hypertension is. It's so weird. And then it's not pulmonary. See, what people don't understand is pulmonary arterial hypertension, which is the category 1 pH, is the rare one. But pulmonary hypertension in general is not rare. And the highest contributor for pulmonary hypertension is COPD, which is around close to 24 million people in USA.
Yep.
So the total number of pulmonary hypertension population is close to around 50 million. So you don't know, at least about 1 in every 7 US citizens, any 1 in 7 Americans have pulmonary hypertension.
But they don't even know sometimes.
Yeah, even they don't know. This is just the diagnosed numbers. Like undiagnosed, you don't know how many has it. So it's like I said, it's like pregnancy. Until you know it, you don't notice it. So it's not a rare disease. It's a very common disease. It's just, it lacks so much education and awareness on this. And because of that, people get diagnosed very late, only when they get to the latter stages, when they cannot be properly treated. So now it's like I try my best to, because of that, create awareness all the time, because I don't want another person ending up like me. And so I want to thank you both for joining me in doing this. So before we hang up, Jessica, is there anything you want to tell everyone who's in watching you now?
Well, one, thank you for watching. That's watching these things and going to events and stuff like this, just even for your friends or family, is immensely important to the people that are affected by it. And two, if you're having trouble breathing, it's not always asthma or something else. It can
Yes.
be something serious. So,
I think we all got that diagnosis of asthma.
yeah, I've had so many different diagnoses.
Yeah, I was like, my whole life I was asthma patient. Supposed to be asthma patient. Yeah, and that's a good advice. If you have any breathing issue, if you feel when you're climbing upstairs that if you're a normal person, you should not go breathless when you're climbing upstairs, like
Yeah.
a small fleet of stairs. But if you are having any issues when you're climbing upstairs, if you're having breathing issues, most of the time, a general physician can't diagnose you because not every doctor knows to treat pulmonary hypertension. So I think it's worth a visit to the closest pulmonary hypertension center and just getting one of those echoes done. You don't need to do any invasive tests, just go meet a doctor and just get a basic echo done to see whether you have pulmonary hypertension, because you get diagnosed when you're around your slight pulmonary hypertension, you can still get treated, unlike us.
Yeah, that's definitely true. If you think something is wrong with you medically at all, no matter what it is, doesn't have to be pulmonary hypertension or HHT or whatever. Fight for your right to get diagnosed and get answers, because it's the worst thing living with problems and not having the answers for them.
Yeah, and then I think you know your body better than anyone else.
Oh,
So
definitely.
if you think what the doctor you visit, the GP you visit has not diagnosed you properly, but you still feel that there is something more to this than what they're saying, go for a second opinion. Don't stick with the first opinion.
Definitely.
The biggest mistake we do is we stick with the first opinion and then everyone goes following that first opinion up. No one bothers to do a second diagnosis, and that's where we go wrong. So don't let that happen. And Kimber, you want to say anything before we close up?
I mean, I always love to share Olivia's story. She's a miracle. So, I mean, thank you for asking me to even be a part of this. Yeah. So, and here's her shirt, Olivia's Warriors.
Yeah, you can follow. Olivia has a separate Facebook page called Olivia's Warriors. So you can follow that page and follow Olivia's stories and learn about her. And okay, we have one more question before we close up. They're asking, a lot of people have been diagnosed with asthma, but all this time it was pulmonary arterial hypertension. And
no, not necessarily. No, sometimes it is asthma. There's a saying in the medical world, when you hear hoof prints, look for horses, not zebras. So they're going to automatically go to the most common diagnosis. But sometimes it isn't just a common diagnosis.
Yeah, it depends, because like for me, my whole life I've been diagnosed as asthma, right? And most of the time, because some of the GPs get confused with asthma and pulmonary hypertension, but that doesn't mean like it's pulmonary hypertension, not asthma as such. So that's why I say, like, if you feel like it's not asthma, it's something different, go and get another diagnosis, because sometimes it can be asthma, but sometimes it might be more than asthma, like for me. So I didn't bother to get a second opinion. I was sticking to my asthma diagnosis and trying all the inhalers possible. But if none of those medicine works and still you have some, like, if you still feel like you're going out of breath, you're passing out and all that, it can be something more serious than asthma. So it's always better to go for a second diagnosis and figure out what's exactly wrong with whatever the disease it is. Kimber, you're muted.
sorry, never be afraid to get a second opinion, like ever. I mean, it doesn't matter if you hurt the doctor's feelings. Like Olivia, they told Olivia to stop coming in again, like for cardiology because she's gonna die anyway. And so I'm like, no, she's not. And so I found someone else. You know, don't ever stop fighting for your life.
Yep.
Yeah, because all three of us has been told you have this much of time to live. If we stuck to that decision, I think none of us would be here today. It's because all three of us decided not to stick to that decision and go fight for it, and to challenge them. We are all here today in the panel. So it's your life. No one else can define what your life is. It's all up to you to define what you want to do and how to live your life. So yes, you need doctors, but try to improve your life, your lifestyle, your daily thing on your own, because like I said, it's all up to you. Challenge your limits, and you can do most of the things which people say you can't. So I want to thank everyone for coming in today, and thank you guys. And the video will be on YouTube and everything, so whoever wants to go back and listen to it, you can do it on YouTube. Thank you so much for coming in, and then in future we will have another episode with 2 more fighters, and we will keep you posted on the event. Thank you guys for coming, and have a good day and have a nice weekend, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.